Thank you for staying with us on the conversation this morning. We started with politics, from politics to youth empowerment, and now we are moving into e-waste, popularly known as electronic waste. Many of us hear electronic waste without knowing what it entails or what exactly are those wastes that we generate electronically. But this morning on the program, we have somebody who's going to inform and educate us on all we need to know about waste management in Nigeria, as well as the challenges in that sector. We have here with us in the studio, Ibukun Faluyi. She's the Executive Secretary, E-Waste Producers and Responsibility Organization of Nigeria, EPRON. Did I get it right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so when you say e-waste, because one of the major functions of this program is to inform and educate Nigerians. When you say e-waste, what readily comes to mind for a layman is those scavengers that you see at dump site picking up damaged electronic devices. So what exactly is electronic waste? Let's start from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very correct to think about those people because that's the practical application of understanding what e-waste is. And so e-waste is any device, any electrical and electronic equipment that is no longer functional, that has reached the end of its functional life. We call that electronic waste. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're looking at these microphones we're using now, the cameras we have in here, anything that has circuitry and anything that has a panel, you know, it's
that's what's it's called electronic waste.
When it's no longer functional. If it's electrical, the lamps here, the fluorescent tubes that you're familiar with, the television where everyone is viewers on, those are electronic waste when they are no longer functional.
So let's talk Naira and Kobo now. Electronic waste. What are the economic potential of electronic waste?
Yeah, so I like the fact that you said people associate e-waste with scavengers, and that directly tells you the economic value, because it's got valuable materials in them that those scavengers want to strip off those old components, and that's why they're picking it up from those places. We have materials like gold, we have copper, we have some very rare earth metals, which if harnessed appropriately can be used to manufacture new products in all those devices as you see them. So it's electronic waste is like a resource bank, let's put it that way. Yeah. Material resource bank. Yeah.
So, but is it structured in a way that we can actually generate more to develop the economy of Nigeria? What readily came to my mind now is a place like Computer Village, because we have many used phones on the street of Computer Village. We have many used panels of solar there. So beyond what those scavengers are collecting, is there anything that we can really use those things for? And what kind of support are you getting from government to structure that industry?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. And I like 2 points that you've raised here now in terms of how should we fully harness the economic potential of this electronic waste beyond what we're seeing the scavengers doing. And that is very important, because when you see the approach the scavengers use to take the valuable materials is very crude. They waste a lot of these materials because they do not have the mechanized process in place. As far as Nigeria is concerned, we don't even have the recycling capacity as of yet to fully recycle e-waste from start to finish. We do have material recovery facilities that are formalized where there's some high level of
recycling.
Yeah, practice, but they are not yet at the level where they can fully recycle. So basically in that section, investment is required for those businesses to help them to do some more. And then when talking about what government is doing, government is really doing, try to put in some regulations in place, to say, okay, this is how this thing should be managed. This is what the value chain should look like. This is the roles and responsibility of each of the members of the value chain. We have this National Electrical Electronic Equipment Regulation 2022. We have a guidance document for electronic waste. We even have a standard for the management at end of life, which specifies how you should collect, how you should transport, how you should recycle. We have all of those in place. But there's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of enforcement of these regulatory instruments that were developed. When you have this regulations, you need to guide the implementation of these things appropriately and not just have them on the shelf as
but as it is presently, do we have any particular place that are structured as collection centers where people can go and collect these raw materials? Or if you have old electronic devices, you can actually take it there and recycle?
Yeah, there are lots. There are, at least in Lagos, there are almost 30 that we have.
30. In
Lagos State, for instance. We have in Abuja, we have around the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. In varying quantities for different parts of the country. But Lagos has about the highest, almost 30 collection points. And active collection is going on as we speak. A lot of collectors collect from organizations, because you see there's the mass production generation from companies, from their laptops, their computers, and what have you. So these collectors approach these organizations and, take it off them as a asset disposal, and then go about doing other things that they need to do with it.
So when they collect these devices, like you rightly pointed out, they will recycle. So what are the byproduct of these collected items? Yeah,
so there will be plastics in varying compositions. There's gold, like I mentioned before. There's palladium, there's neodymium, there's cobalt, there's copper, depending on what you're collecting and what you're able to do with it. But like I was mentioning earlier, we have that recycling gap in being able to process it to those last elements that I've mentioned in the country. But so at the end of our own material recovery from our recycling facilities, what you will see is the plastics, the panels, which will then now be exported to other countries where they can fully process it into the fine elements that we want it to be.
So in terms of processing, we are not really there yet.
We are not really there yet. I mean, in terms of legal processing methodology, we are not. We do have some crude methods of getting it there, but it's very unsafe for the environment. So it's not something we want to talk about as a recommended methodology.
So for a place like Computer Village now, or the Oluchosun dump site here, what do you think government can do to ensure that we actually explore the benefits of electronic waste from those sites?
Yeah, so basically, it's
because that is where I see most of these scavengers.
Absolutely. So basically, the scavengers have moved from even the Oluchosun to home. You see them going from house to house. Yeah. So they've understood the value of separating them from source, collecting from source. And this is exactly what government should also help us to be able to implement. From Computer Village, you collect from these businesses, because a lot is generated there during the repair process. So we collect from these businesses and then take to recycling facilities directly. So it doesn't even get to the dump sites in the first place. Yeah, if you can do that high value collection at the community level, from the homes, from the schools, from the supermarkets, everywhere, from the repairers, everywhere that it's generated, then it helps to, keep the loop closed and then at high value.
But beyond what you want government to do for you, for an association like yours, what are you doing as well to help yourself?
So our association has been focusing more on advocacy and also most on getting the regulatory process in place. We were set up specifically to coordinate activities in that downstream. So we helped also to set up those collection centers. We work with governments and the industry practitioners to set up the collection centers. Also, we help to develop the standards, bring in the technical know-how so that people can do things appropriately, and also to do a lot of education, training of people in the value chain to do things the way it should be done. More recently, we are also going to the point of initiating a process where we called Corporate Recollect. And then with this approach, we're going to be doing massive collection from corporate organizations and get them recycled through the formal channels like it should be. Because what we've seen is a lot of formal, informal activities is going on. We register collectors. They're supposed to work according to certain guidelines. We have a national manual that we have developed to guide how activities should go. But it's not going according to that. We do not have the ability to enforce those actions. But then what we can do is to tweak the process and ensure that we put in a traceability approach in the process, such that while it's being generated from the corporate and it's going anywhere, we can trace it and see exactly how it is managed eventually.
Okay, but what does the manual say? And do you have up-to-date data of those who are actually involved in this e-waste management in Nigeria?
Yeah, we do have up-to-date data on them. We do, and then the manual specifies quite a number of things. You know, it was developed mostly from the national, the NIS standards, you know, that was created for the industry. It was just to make the standards simpler for practitioners, because we do have a lot of people that are very lay in the value chain. So, you know, to make it commonplace English, pictures to see and understand what the process needs to be, and then for them to identify all these things and do it. For instance, once you collect, this is how you should store, this is what you should not do. You should not collect in certain places, you should not have access to rain, the floor must be impermeable. You know, just basic standards because, you know, as you're saying, it has critical materials, raw materials, it also has hazardous components. So the handling is very, very important. So just store it appropriately, and then when you store it, have your documentation in place. Let's know the quantity, then we make arrangement for it to be picked up from your place to the recycler. Very simple. So what we've seen is the collectors will go do the collection and then go back door to manage it themselves, because they want to maximize the profit, like I mentioned. Because once they do it that way, they're able to collect the valuable fractions and shift the burden of the hazardous ones to the municipality, which shouldn't be. If you're taking it, then you take it in its entirety. Once you take in the valuable fractions, the negative fractions too, you should manage it the way it should be managed.
Where would those be managed?
So there are a lot of centers that can help to manage that, but they're not for free. You need to pay for them because it is a process. So typically, they wouldn't want to do that, and then they just put it back in the public bins, which we do not want any component of e-waste being in there in the first place.
Okay, so when you have continuous exposure to e-waste, are there any dangers involved?
A lot of dangers. There are a lot of studies that have shown that some people have high lead concentrations in their bloodstreams, heavy metal concentrations of different types apart from lead, and I mean, we need not say so much. We've had a lead exposure experience in Nigeria before in Zamfara. We know what happened. So the impact is very horrible. We have the flame retardants, which are endocrine depleting substances as well. You know, they stay in the fatty tissues of the body, disrupt hormones of women, you know, affects people generally, cancer. You know, the mismanagement is associated with a lot of adverse impacts, and it's not just on the humans, on the entire ecosystem, because it affects animals too. And you know, eventually we will be the recipients of whatever happens to our environment, because it will ultimately have that huge health impact on us.
So are there plans by the association to formalize the membership of these scavengers that we see, or they're just on their own? Yeah,
so there's been plans. We're working with ILO also to even have like a national repository for all these scavengers, so that they're able to guide them. A lot of activities have been done in the past. They've been trained, they've been registered as cooperatives in partnership with LOMA, you know, so that, you know, you can know them and have it. But it's a very vibrant community. Some set of scavengers are here today. The next time another set of scavengers are there. It's not the same people that do this all the time, because they, you know, the kind of places that they come from, they go back and forth. So to really hold them accountable has been what the government has not been able to really.
Are they not registered with you or with the government?
Yeah, so they're registered with LOMA, but there's a way. I prefer not to say so much about that registration process, because when you do see the way that they come into the communities in Lagos and places like this,
they come uninvited.
Not just, it seems like they come uninvited, but usually someone has invited them. So they feel like they owe their allegiance to that person that brought them in. So you just registering them, they will give you information like you've asked, but how useful is that information that you have is something to ask, because to register them, you really need to work with those guys that have brought them in.
Wow. Oh, okay, so in terms of figures now, can we really put a particular figure to the volume of electronic waste that we are generating in the country presently?
Yeah, so no, together with ITU, we are starting a project that we want to use to quantify it, because typically we've always gotten our volumes from the Global E-Waste Monitor. And when we look at the process and the number of people that the country has, it's difficult to agree that, that those values really represent what we generate in the country. So there's a project now that is being conceptualized between the International Telecommunication Union, the Ministry of Technology, that's an NCC, specific, yeah, also EPRON, and then there will be some other government agencies that will work together to put the value really to what we are generating in terms of electronic waste in the country.
Listening to you this morning, I know that there's a lot of economic values in electronic waste generation and management, but are people really showing interest in this sector?
It's not like interest. People,
or it's not formalized yet?
There's a lot of people working in the sector. Some reports had said 100,000 people in terms of the informal people. And then we have very good formal organizations that I prefer not to mention because I don't want it to charge me. There's some formal organizations that are doing the recycling in Lagos, in Port Harcourt. You know, there are quite a lot of organizations, and quite a lot of people are still investing in technology to do some more. Recently, one organization got a $1.5 million loan, you know, to do some. Another one got about 3 point something. A foreign organization coming to Nigeria to set up a facility that will completely, you know, I was saying that there's just a little we can do so far, but the ultimate melting plant is coming. You know, we saw that announced on LinkedIn. So really, there's a lot of prospects in the sector, and we are very optimistic and hopeful that all of those things will come into place, and then the sector can really do well.
But in terms of awareness, would you say that it's enough? Are many Nigerians aware as to the benefit that they can derive from e-waste generation? Because many of us, the way and manner we dispose some of our used items without knowing the dangers that those things might contain, the awareness is still not there.
You are very correct. The awareness is very low. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the awareness. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we're hoping that we'll be able to work with organizations like yours to put that message, to put the spotlight on electronic waste like we really should. There's so much to be done, really.
So what about catching them young, maybe going to our schools right from primary and secondary? Would that make any impact?
Absolutely. For International E-Waste Day 2 days ago, what we did was we...
International E-Waste Day?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had earlier on announced...
What's the theme for this year?
Recycle your e-waste. It's critical because it's centered around critical raw materials, like which I had mentioned, like copper, neodymium, and cobalt, lithium. All these are precious materials that a lot of people are scrambling for, especially as we are having this transition to renewable energy globally. So there's a lot of competition for those materials. It's critical for everybody all over the world. So we try to raise a lot of awareness, and then using lots of school children. We did an essay competition amongst secondary school students in Nigeria, and a lot of them wrote about the critical raw materials and electronic waste and how we should be managed, how we should have the just transition as well. It was quite engaging. Some of them eventually won the laptop prize, you know, tablet devices. So it was a very good competition, and it was really eye-opening. The students learned a lot from it.
So as a society now, what should be the short-term and long-term plans for us to put in place to really harness the potential of this industry?
Yeah, so the short-term plan should be to set up a system that will be functional in terms of channeling the e-waste appropriately. And then the immediate long-term plan should be to have those facilities in place where we can manage it from start to finish. You know, all the materials can be fully harnessed and even reused in this country. We need to go from exporting materials out of the country to using it ourselves as a country. It's very important because that's when we can fully realize the full employment benefits, economic benefits of all these materials and get lots of Nigerians employed.
Okay, so for anyone watching us right now who might want to invest or is interested in coming into that sector, what are the channels for them to take to become registered?
Okay, so it depends on how they want to play. We'll be happy. They can reach out to us on info@epron.org.ng. We'll be happy to support them, depending on what role they want to play in the sector. Yeah, just yesterday, someone called us thinking about setting up a recycling facility, and we said, okay, we'll appreciate if you can have one in the northwestern side part of the country where we don't have. So on, North Central. So basically, we can provide those kind of support and give them all the regulatory requirements that they need to meet so that they can register. Yeah.
What kind of relationship exists between you and the Ministry of the Environment?
It's a good working relationship. We get to sit together to discuss issues on what needs to be done, what are the gaps, and how we should take things forward. So we can say it's a good relationship, a good working one.
All right, we've been discussing e-waste management in Nigeria with Ibukun Faluyi, Executive Secretary, E-Waste Producers Responsibility Organization of Nigeria, EPRON, and she's been able to identify the potential of that industry and how government will need to come in and support those who are playing big in that sector for the benefit of our society. We must thank you very much, Ibukun Faluyi, Executive Secretary, E-Waste Producers Responsibility Organization of Nigeria, EPRON, for coming on the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we'll take a very quick break. When we come back, the show will continue.
Thank you.